I found my grandson behind bars, his face bruised, his spirit broken. His own father-in-law put him there. "Grandma," he whispered through the glass partition. He said our family was nothing but white trash, that we'd never prove anything. I drove home that night and called my brother. "Samuel," I said, "remember what Mama always told us? That a Dawson never abandons their own?" He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I'm on my way. This is a true story. Hello, my dears. Set aside whatever you're doing for a moment. I want to share something that might change how you see your own family. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I hope you enjoy listening." November had come early to Kentucky that year, bringing with it a bitter cold that seemed to seep into everything. I was grading papers at my kitchen table, a habit I never quite broke even 5 years into retirement. 40 years of teaching high school English will do that to you. My name is Eleanor Dawson. Most folks in Henderson County know me as Mrs. Dawson, or simply Ellie. I taught 3 generations of children in this town, delivered their book reports, wiped their tears, attended their weddings. At 64, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at a person. I was wrong. The phone rang at 7 in the evening. My daughter-in-law Patricia's number flashed on the screen. Strange. She usually texted, "Mom Dawson." Her voice was shaking. "It's Marcus. He's been arrested." The words didn't make sense. Marcus, my grandson, was 28 years old. He had graduated top of his class at University of Kentucky. He worked as a financial analyst at his father-in-law's insurance company in Louisville. He had a pregnant wife, a beautiful home, a promising future. Arrested for what? I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Embezzlement. They're saying he stole $2 million from the company. I sat down heavily, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Marcus had never stolen anything in his life. When he was 12, he found a $20 bill in the school parking lot and turned it in to the principal's office. That was the kind of boy he was. "That's impossible," I said firmly. "There must be a mistake." Patricia started crying. Victor had him arrested personally. He called the police himself, his own son-in-law, Mom, and Jessica. She choked on the words. "Jessica won't even take my calls." Jessica was Marcus's wife of 3 years, the daughter of Victor and Catherine Whitmore, owners of Whitmore Insurance Group, one of the largest insurance companies in the state. When Marcus married her, we all thought he had found his fairy tale ending. I should have known better. Fairy tales are just pretty lies we tell children. "I'm coming to Louisville," I said. "Tonight." The drive took 2 hours. 2 hours of dark highway and darker thoughts. I remembered Marcus as a baby, how he used to fall asleep on my chest while I read him stories. I remembered teaching him to ride a bicycle, to tie his shoes, to stand up to bullies. His parents, my son David and his wife Patricia, had divorced when Marcus was 10. David moved to California, started a new family, became a stranger. I helped Patricia raise that boy. He was as much mine as he was hers. The county jail was a gray concrete building that seemed designed to crush hope. I had to wait until morning for visiting hours. I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching the sun rise over a world that suddenly seemed hostile and unfamiliar. When they finally brought Marcus to the visitation room, I barely recognized him. His left eye was swollen shut. His lip was split. He moved stiffly, like every step caused him pain. "What happened to you?" I pressed my hand against the glass that separated us, fell down some stairs. His voice was flat. "Dead." That's what they told me to say. Rage bloomed in my chest, hot and fierce. "Who did this?" "Doesn't matter, Grandma." He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there broke my heart. Not just pain, but defeat. They have everything: money, connections, power. Victor Whitmore plays golf with the district attorney. His brother is a state senator. Who's going to believe me? "I believe you," I said firmly. "Tell me what really happened." He was silent for a long moment, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. Then he leaned closer to the glass. "I found something, Grandma. 3 weeks ago, I was running an audit on some accounts and noticed irregularities, large payments to companies that didn't seem to exist. I dug deeper." He swallowed hard. "They've been running a fraud scheme for years. Fake claims, phantom policyholders, inflated settlements, millions of dollars, maybe tens of millions. And Victor Whitmore knows? He's running it. Him and his brother Richard, the senator. Marcus's voice cracked. When I confronted him, he laughed. Said I should be grateful they let white trash like me into the family. That I should keep my mouth shut and enjoy the ride. White trash. The words hit me like a physical blow. I thought of my mother, who worked 2 jobs to put herself through nursing school. My father, who built houses with his bare hands until his back gave out. My brother Samuel, who served 25 years in the FBI. Generations of Dawsons who worked hard, played fair, and never asked for handouts. What did you do? I asked quietly. I told him I couldn't be part of it, that I would go to the authorities. Marcus laughed bitterly. Stupid, right? The next day, I was arrested. They had documents, bank statements, everything pointing to me. Forged, all of it. But who's going to believe that? What about Jessica? Your wife? The pain in his eyes deepened. She chose her father. Said I betrayed the family. Said she's filing for divorce. His hand moved to the glass, mirroring mine. Grandma, she's 7 months pregnant. That's my baby. And she won't even let me. He couldn't finish. Neither could I. I drove back to Henderson that afternoon, but I didn't go home. Instead, I turned onto the old county road that led to my brother's farm. Samuel was 67 years old, retired from the FBI for 5 years now. He lived alone in the house where we grew up, surrounded by 40 acres of woodland and memories. He was on the porch when I pulled up, as if he had been expecting me. Samuel had always been like that. Intuitive, sharp. Even now, with his gray hair and weathered face, he had the watchful eyes of a man who had spent decades hunting criminals. Coffee's ready, he said as I climbed the porch steps. Figured you'd be coming. How did you know? Heard about Marcus on the news this morning. He handed me a steaming mug. Embezzlement charges. Whitmore Insurance. Didn't sound right. It isn't right. I told him everything. The fraud, the frame-up, the beating, Jessica's betrayal. By the time I finished, his jaw was set in that hard line I remembered from childhood when someone had wronged our family. Victor Whitmore, Samuel said thoughtfully. I know that name. Came up in a federal investigation about 8 years ago. Insurance fraud, but nothing stuck. He had good lawyers. He has more than lawyers now. His brother is a senator. Samuel nodded slowly. Richard Whitmore. Sits on the State Judiciary Committee. Lots of friends in law enforcement. He looked at me. This won't be easy, Ellie. I don't care about easy. I care about my grandson. He smiled, a rare expression on his weathered face. There's that Dawson stubbornness. Mama would be proud. Can you help? I still have contacts, people who owe me favors. He stood up, and suddenly he didn't look like a retired old man anymore. He looked like the FBI agent who had brought down drug cartels and corrupt politicians. But I need to know you understand what we're getting into. These people are dangerous. They've already shown they're willing to hurt Marcus. They might come after us too. I thought about my grandson's battered face, about the baby growing in Jessica's womb, my great-grandchild, who might never know their father, about Victor Whitmore calling us white trash. Mama used to say that a teacher's job is to shine light in dark places, I said. That's what Dawsons do. We don't look away from darkness, we fight it. Samuel nodded. Then let's get to work. Over the next 2 weeks, our house became a command center. Samuel called in favors from former colleagues, forensic accountants, and private investigators. I contributed what I could, organizing documents, making calls, keeping Patricia informed. Marcus's bail was denied. Too much of a flight risk, the judge said. A judge, we later learned, who had received substantial campaign contributions from the Whitmore family. The picture that emerged was worse than Marcus had described. The fraud went back at least 15 years. Shell companies in Delaware and Nevada, fake policyholders with stolen identities, claims for accidents that never happened, deaths that were fabricated, properties that didn't exist. Conservative estimates put the total at over $40 million. They're not just stealing from the company, Samuel explained one evening, spreading documents across my kitchen table. They're stealing from everyone who pays insurance premiums in this state. Rates go up to cover losses. Honest people pay more so these criminals can get rich. Can we prove it? We're getting there. But proof isn't enough. He tapped a photograph of Victor Whitmore shaking hands with the governor. These people are connected at every level. If we go to local authorities, it'll get buried. We need federal attention. And for that, we need something explosive. The break came 3 days later, from an unexpected source. I was at the grocery store, of all places, when a woman approached me in the cereal aisle. She was in her 50s, well-dressed but nervous, constantly glancing over her shoulder. "You're Eleanor Dawson," she said quietly. "Marcus's grandmother." I tensed, unsure if she was friend or enemy. "Who's asking?" "My name is Linda Chen. I was Victor Whitmore's personal assistant for 12 years. She pressed a flash drive into my hand, until I found out what he was really doing with the money. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because he destroyed a good man to protect himself. Just like he destroyed me when I asked too many questions." Her eyes were haunted. "I was fired 6 months ago. They said I was stealing office supplies, made sure I couldn't get another job in the industry. My husband left me. My kids barely speak to me." She gripped my arm. "Your grandson is the first person who tried to do the right thing. I couldn't help him then. Maybe I can help him now." On the flash drive were emails, financial records, and most damning of all, recordings. Victor Whitmore, in his own voice, discussing the fraud with his brother, joking about the suckers who paid their premiums, bragging about how untouchable they were. "Is this real?" I asked Samuel that night as we listened to the recordings. "It's real." His voice was grim. "And it's enough. But we need to move carefully. These recordings were probably obtained illegally. We can't use them directly in court. Then what good are they? They tell us where to look, what to subpoena, who to pressure." He smiled coldly. "And they give us leverage." The plan came together over the next week. Samuel contacted a friend at the FBI's Louisville field office, someone he trusted absolutely. They began a quiet investigation, obtaining warrants, subpoenaing bank records, building a case that couldn't be buried by local connections. But we needed something else. We needed to protect Marcus until the investigation was complete. And for that, we needed to confront Victor Whitmore directly. "This is risky," Samuel warned as we prepared to drive to Louisville. "He might try to have us arrested, claim we're harassing him. Let him try." I checked the small recorder in my purse, the one Samuel had given me. I've faced down angry parents, hostile school boards, and teenagers who thought they knew everything. One corrupt insurance executive doesn't scare me. The Whitmore estate was everything I expected. Massive iron gates, manicured lawns, a mansion that probably had more rooms than my entire school. The security guard tried to turn us away, but I simply smiled and said, "Tell Mr. Whitmore that Eleanor Dawson is here to discuss his grandchild. He'll want to hear what I have to say." 5 minutes later, we were escorted into a study lined with leather-bound books that had probably never been read. Victor Whitmore sat behind a mahogany desk, looking at us like we were insects that had crawled in from the garden. "Mrs. Dawson." His voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of condescension. "I don't know what you hope to accomplish here. Your grandson is a thief. The evidence is overwhelming." "The evidence was manufactured," I said calmly. "We both know that." He laughed. "Even if that were true, which it isn't, who would believe you? A retired school teacher and an old FBI agent who's been out of the game for years." He shook his head. "Go home, Mrs. Dawson. Accept that your grandson made bad choices. Maybe in a few years, when he gets out of prison, he can start over." "You mean like Linda Chen tried to start over?" The change in his expression was subtle but unmistakable, a flicker of surprise quickly masked. "I don't know who that is," he said. "Really? Your personal assistant for 12 years? The woman who knew where all the bodies were buried?" I leaned forward. "She gave us everything, Mr. Whitmore. The emails, the financial records, the recordings." His face went pale. "Those recordings were obtained illegally. They're inadmissible. In court, maybe. But the FBI seems very interested in them as a roadmap." Samuel spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the weight of decades of law enforcement experience. "They've already obtained warrants for your bank records, and your brother's. The investigation is federal now, beyond the reach of your golf buddies and campaign contributions." Victor Whitmore sat very still. I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. "What do you want?" he finally asked. Justice, I said simply. You're going to drop all charges against Marcus. You're going to issue a public statement acknowledging that he was falsely accused. And you're going to ensure that my great-grandchild knows their father. And if I do this, the recordings disappear? The recordings are already in federal hands. Nothing disappears. Samuel's smile was cold, but your cooperation might be noted, might make a difference when it comes time for sentencing. The silence stretched. Outside, a gardener trimmed hedges, oblivious to the drama unfolding inside. You think you've won, Victor finally said, his voice low and dangerous. But you don't understand how the world works. People like me don't go to prison. We have lawyers, connections, resources you can't imagine. People like you. I stood up, surprising myself with my own steadiness. You called my family white trash. You looked at my grandson and saw nothing but a means to an end. But let me tell you something about people like us, Mr. Whitmore. I walked to his desk, placed both hands on the polished surface, and looked directly into his eyes. My mother worked 16-hour days to become a nurse. My father built houses until his hands bled. My brother spent 25 years hunting criminals who thought they were above the law. And I spent 40 years teaching children that integrity matters more than money, that character is more important than connections. I straightened up. That's our family legacy. Not wealth or power, but strength. Resilience. The ability to stand up when others try to push us down. You called it trash. I call it steel. We left the Whitmore estate as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. I didn't look back. 2 days later, the charges against Marcus were dropped. A week after that, federal agents arrested Victor and Richard Whitmore on charges of wire fraud, insurance fraud, and money laundering. The news coverage was extensive. A senator in handcuffs. A wealthy businessman exposed as a criminal. The kind of story that captures public attention. I watched it all from my living room, feeling strangely empty. Justice had been served, but the cost had been high. Marcus came to stay with me after his release. He was thin, quiet, haunted by what he had experienced. The bruises faded, but the wounds to his spirit would take longer to heal. Jessica filed for divorce immediately after her father's arrest. She wanted nothing to do with Marcus, blamed him for destroying her family. I understood, in a way. It's easier to blame the messenger than to accept that the people you loved were monsters. But the baby was still coming, and despite everything, Marcus was determined to be part of his child's life. She can't keep me away forever, he said one evening as we sat on my porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. I have rights. I'll fight for them if I have to. You won't have to fight alone, I told him. That's what family is for. A month later, we received word that Jessica had gone into labor. Marcus drove to Louisville immediately. I followed a few hours later, after making sure Patricia could take time off work. The hospital waiting room was uncomfortable, filled with people I didn't know. Jessica's mother, Catherine Whitmore, sat in a corner, looking like she had aged 20 years. She refused to meet my eyes. I didn't blame her. Her husband and brother-in-law were facing decades in prison. Her world had collapsed. When the nurse came to announce that the baby had arrived, a girl, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, healthy and strong, Catherine stood up. Jessica wants to see Marcus, she said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken to any of us. Marcus looked at me, uncertain. I nodded encouragingly. Go meet your daughter. He was gone for nearly an hour. When he returned, his eyes were red, but there was something new in them. Hope. Her name is Rose, he said, his voice breaking. Jessica, let me hold her. She's so small, Grandma, so perfect. And Jessica? She's still angry, still hurt. But she said, he paused, gathering himself. She said she doesn't want Rose to grow up without a father. That will work something out. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. But it was a beginning. In the months that followed, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Marcus moved back to Louisville, found a new job at a smaller firm that valued integrity over connections. He saw Rose every week, sometimes more. The relationship with Jessica remained complicated, but they were learning to co-parent, to put their daughter's needs above their own pain. Samuel returned to his quiet life on the farm, though he seemed more energized than he had in years. Hunting the Whitmores had reminded him why he joined the FBI in the first place. He started volunteering with a non-profit that investigated fraud against seniors. I went back to my routines, grading papers for the current English teacher who still asked my advice, baking cookies for church fundraisers, reading stories to the children at the local library. But I was different now. I had discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed, or maybe I had always known it was there, passed down through generations of Dawsons who refused to be broken. On Rose's first birthday, we gathered at my house for a celebration. Marcus and Jessica came together, a truce for their daughter's sake. Patricia brought a homemade cake. Samuel provided his famous barbecue. Even Catherine Whitmore made an appearance, bringing an expensive toy that Rose immediately ignored in favor of the cardboard box it came in. As I watched my great-granddaughter toddle across the lawn, chasing butterflies she would never catch, I thought about legacies, about what we pass down to those who come after us. Victor Whitmore had passed down wealth and connections, but also corruption, arrogance, and a belief that some people were inherently better than others. That legacy was crumbling now, exposed for the hollow thing it had always been. The Dawson legacy was different. Teachers and nurses, builders and investigators, people who worked hard, told the truth, and stood up for what was right. Not glamorous, not wealthy, but solid, enduring. Rose would inherit both legacies. She would have to choose which one to embrace. But watching her laugh as Marcus scooped her up, seeing the joy in my grandson's eyes, I knew which way she would lean. The Dawson blood was strong. It had survived poverty and prejudice, loss and betrayal. It would survive this too. "You're smiling," Samuel said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of lemonade. "What are you thinking about?" "Family," I said. "Legacy. The things that really matter." He nodded, watching Rose try to grab Marcus's nose. "She's a Dawson, that one. Look at that stubborn chin." I laughed. God help us all. As the sun set over Henderson County, painting the sky in familiar shades of orange and gold, I raised my glass. "To family," I said. "To family," Samuel echoed. Somewhere inside the house, Rose started crying, and Jessica's voice mingled with Marcus's as they worked together to comfort her. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was real. It was ours. And that was enough. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to Crystal Revenge. It motivates us to create new and interesting stories every day. Don't miss the new video appearing on your screen right now. Take care of yourselves and be happy.